guys. Family. Can't save them all.
According to Fast and Furious star and producer Vin Diesel, the 11th movie will be the final film in the now over 2-decade-old blockbuster action franchise. With everything that Fast X laid on the table, Fast and Furious 11 could end the long-running series in a number of ways. But here on ScreenRant, we have a couple ideas about what should happen in the finale of the Fast saga. For starters, we all know that Dom and Little B are bound to survive the cliffhanger ending of Fast X, but in the next movie, either Dom Toretto or Dante Reyes should permanently die. After 10 films over 2 decades, killing off either Vin Diesel's Dom or Jason Momoa's Dante Reyes would be the only real way to cap off the main movie franchise. In Fast 11, Dom could end up in prison after killing Dante, who conversely could do the same to Dom and spend the post-credit scene in solitary confinement. Either way, this should answer the need for a great sacrifice in the final Fast and Furious movie. After all, these films are about family, and both the hero and villain are more than willing to die for theirs. Indeed, it would be quite poignant for Dom to sacrifice himself to finally ensure that his family is safe from Dante, who has emerged as the greatest villain in the franchise after just one movie. Alternatively, it would be equally compelling to see the franchise newcomer avenging his father by killing the unkillable Dom Toretto, only to get thrown in prison, possibly by Dwayne Johnson's Luke Hobbs.
Well, I ain't hard to find, you some bitch.
And this brings us to our next point. The Hobbs solo movie should hit theaters before Fast 11. Notably, Hobbs had a brief but crucial final scene in Fast X, the post-credit scene of which sees Dante threatening Hobbs for killing his father back in Fast 5. Viewers first thought that this was a setup for Fast 11 or Fast X Part 2, but it actually sets up a different movie, the solo Hobbs Fast and Furious spin-off. While Fast 11 is slated for release sometime in the summer of 2026, the Hobbs movie has no confirmed release date just yet, but it needs to hit theaters before Fast 11. According to Dwayne Johnson, in the next Fast and Furious film, you'll see the legendary lawman in the Hobbs movie. That will serve as a fresh new chapter and setup for Fast X Part 2. That said, this franchise also has a history of having a muddled timeline and shifting release dates. Whenever they're planning to release the new Hobbs spin-off, the Fast Saga crew needs to deliver on Johnson's promise, because if they don't, it could diminish the impact of what is supposedly the franchise's finale. On that note, Fast and Furious 11 should be the real final film in the mainline saga.
You don't turn your back on family, even when they do.
At this point, the franchise has gone far beyond stretching the limits of its high-octane premise and narrative. In fact, even longtime fans of the Fast saga argue that it should have ended in Furious 7, which neatly tied up the major loose ends and bid a poignant farewell to Paul Walker's Brian O'Connor. However, we're now 4 movies past that point, and the burden of concluding the franchise on a high note now falls on Fast 11, and Vin Diesel and company need to uphold their promise that Fast 11 will be the end. With Fast X grossing $714 million in the box office against a $378 million budget, it's clear that the mainline Fast saga shouldn't push its luck any further than the 11th movie. Besides, there will be plenty of spin-off opportunities after Fast 11, and in order to maximize those opportunities, Fast 11 should bring back underutilized fan-favorite characters.
Damn, Suki, when you gonna pop my clutch, huh?
As soon as you get the right set of tools.
Yeah, alright.
Although Fast X notably saw the return of Luke Hobbs and Jason Statham's Deckard Shaw, we're still waiting on some forgotten Fast and Furious characters to return, which should happen in the finale. For instance, there's Lucas Black's Sean Boswell, the protagonist of Tokyo Drift. Alongside Too Fast, Too Furious, Tokyo Drift saw what the franchise could look like without Dom in the spotlight, as Sean proved to be a capable leader in his journey to become the Drift King. Moreover, Sean reappeared briefly in F9 as the mad scientist behind the movie's infamous rocket Pontiac, which he designed alongside Bow Wow's Twinkie and Jason Tobin's Earl Who. Sean, Twinkie, and Earl were never heard from again, but the finale should at least bring back Sean, whose drifting and newfound technical skills could give Dom's team the edge against Dante. Meanwhile, Devon Aoki's Suki from Too Fast, Too Furious should also return to the finale. Although she only appeared in Too Fast, Too Furious, Suki was a fan favorite who inspired a generation of young girls to get into race cars. The finale is also glaringly dominated by male drivers, and this could get fixed with Suki joining the picture. Moreover, there's at least one reoccurring character who would be very happy to see Suki again: Ludacris's Tej, who had a flirtatious romance with Suki back in Too Fast, Too Furious. In fact, alongside Tyrese Gibson's Roman and Brian O'Connor, Tej and Suki formed a formidable team in the first Fast and Furious sequel. Speaking of which, the finale should give Brian O'Connor a central role.
It's never goodbye.
Brian's last actual scene was in the emotional finale of Furious 7, and in F9, Brian's blue Nissan Skyline graced the screen to imply that he's still alive and out there somewhere. This was how F9 still included Brian while cleverly avoiding any further criticisms about rendering the late Paul Walker in CGI. However, Brian not only doesn't appear in Fast X, but isn't even really acknowledged in the movie, which is weird because the family needs him now more than ever. Fast 11 should fix this problem by finally giving Brian the farewell that he deserves. While F9 showed how Brian's cars could literally function as his stand-ins, Furious 7, despite its flaws, proved that even just a few CGI scenes of Brian could be extremely impactful, and combined with the return of Brian's original team from Too Fast, Too Furious, Furious 11 could shine the spotlight on the character while avoiding previous criticisms about mishandling Paul Walker's legacy. It's always going to be risky bringing back a beloved character who was played by a deceased actor, but Brian is absolutely worth the risk, as properly handling his inevitable return could be the key to ending the franchise on a high note. That said, Brian reuniting with the crew isn't the only reunion that viewers want to see in Fast 11.
I thought you wanted to go to Tokyo.
We'll get there. Eventually.
We all know Dom, Michelle Rodriguez's Letty, and Leo Bello Perry's Little B will somehow find their way back to each other in Fast 11. But how about Brian and his wife, Jordana Brewster's Mia Toretto? Apart from explaining what Brian is up to, Fast and Furious still needs to reunite Brian with Mia and their two kids. There's also Suki and Tej, a reunion that's already several movies overdue. And the same can be said of Sun Kang's Han and Gal Gadot's Giselle. After Han and Giselle got together in Fast 5, Giselle supposedly died in Fast and Furious 6. And when Giselle reappeared in the ending of Fast X, it was Han whose life was in danger. Fast 11 shouldn't end without Han and Giselle finding each other again, potentially through Giselle's mounting another rescue mission to save Dom's crew. With Fast 11 being very likely to be the last movie in the franchise, it's high time to give the good guys the ending that the fans want them to have. And this brings us to our last point. The Fast and Furious series should end with the craziest stunt in its franchise history. These stunts may be the reason why these movies cost a fortune to make, but they're also why audiences can't resist returning to the franchise. From Tej and Roman going to space in a Pontiac in F9, to the infamous safe heist from Fast 5. Ridiculous, physics-defying stunts have come to define the Fast saga. Currently, the craziest stunts in the franchise can be found in the last 10 minutes of Fast X, and Fast 11 should pull off all the stops to somehow deliver even bigger and more memorable action set pieces. While tying all the loose ends in Fast 11 is important, it's arguably even more crucial for the Fast saga to conclude with the loudest possible bang. What else do you think we should see in the very last Fast and Furious movie? Thank you for watching ScreenRant, and stay tuned for more movie news.